If you create anything that involves working with audio, then a good pair of headphones is pretty darn important. And I've been using the Rode NTH100s for more than 2 years now, and I have spent hundreds of hours in the 100s, but Shure sent over the SRH 440A, and I thought it would be a good idea to compare these two headphones because admittedly, I'm not a huge headphone guy. I actually don't know a ton about headphones, but I kind of thought maybe that's actually a good reason why I can weigh in on my experience, because there are a ton of like deep diving technical reviews out there, and maybe I can offer some insight into how these different headphones work for me as a solo creator who makes videos and podcasts while also doing, streaming and video calls. I use them a lot, and I can just tell you my honest experience with them. And I will be sure to touch on a few other popular headphone options towards the end, but the main sets that I want to focus on today are the Rode NTH100s and the Shure SRH 440As. Very catchy product names all around. Now, like I said, the NTH100s have been my main headphones since their release in early 2022, and I really love them. I actually own 4 sets of them, 2 sets that I bought and 2 sets that Rode sent over. For what that's worth. But speaking of what things are worth, Shure did send over the 440As for free, but I'm under no obligation to make a video or say anything about them. They're just headphones, and I thought it would be kind of fun to try them out and then use them for a while and do a comparison so you can see how they stack up against the Rodes. These are not new to Shure's lineup. They were actually released a few months before the NTH100s in 2022. So these are like January, I think these were April of 2022. And even then, the 440As were really an update to the existing 440s, which were a model that had been around for quite a bit longer. But just to start off this whole thing, let me spoil this whole review, because that's one of my favorite things to do, just spoil the whole thing. Both of these sets of headphones are great. So that's my conclusion. They're both great. See you next time. I do still personally prefer the Rode headphones because of their overall comfort, their neutral sound, and they kind of have some cool quality of life features that I really like. The Shure headphones are a little bit less expensive, and they probably do have a slight edge in overall build quality because both sets of headphones are built really well, but it's definitely worth mentioning that an issue that has popped up with the Rodes is this adjustment clip breaking, especially on earlier sets. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, on the Rode headphones, you can turn this little clip right here and then adjust the headphone and then lock it in. Whereas the Shures have kind of more of a standard, like you just sort of, listen, you just sort of do that and that adjusts your headphones right there. That's a pretty standard design. The Rode design is really cool because it locks in and then you don't end up with lopsided headphones, but especially early on, a lot of people were having these break. It is something that Rode will cover under warranty because obviously it's not something that's supposed to happen. Although I kind of think they might have updated the design to fix this. I don't have any evidence of that, but I did get each of my 4 sets at different times. So if these have been out for a little over 2 years, I pretty much got one set about every 6 months. It's just kind of how it worked out. So I can tell you my experience with the Rode headphone clip issue. So the first set I got were these ones right here. This was a pre-production model because Rode sent it out a little bit before they were released, and it does have one broken latch on this side here. I just put some gaff tape over it. But I don't know that I would really blame Rode because I kind of did that myself. I had the headphones on like this, and I was trying to take them off with one hand, and I was sort of stretching and twisting them in a way that I probably shouldn't have been, and it kind of snapped. Now, I guess if this were a metal part or a more traditional design, it probably wouldn't have broken, but it's not something that broke on its own. It wasn't just like randomly one day it was broken. I very clearly was pulling these in like kind of an extreme way and heard a snap, so I can take the blame for that one. Now, this was the first set that Rode sent over. The second set, I think it was this set here, was one that I bought 7 or 8 months later, and this is the set that I actually use for all of my editing. So this, when I'm editing videos and podcasts, this usually kind of hangs out in a different part of our house, and this is the one I'm wearing. Probably spend the most hours in this one, and I will say that both clips do have cracks on opposite sides. I'll put in some B-roll so you can see a little bit better, but you can kind of see right here, there's a little fault line crack right there, and that is not my fault. That line is not my fault because I've done nothing crazy. I didn't stretch or do anything like that. These have just cracked over time. So these were about 6 months after the initial release. They still work fine, but both of these are cracked. And the third set is the one I bought about a year later, and this is probably the one I use second most. I use it anytime I'm playing my bass. I also have it kind of over here on my computer and do anytime I'm doing like video calls or podcasts or whatever. This is the pair I'm wearing for that. This has no cracks in it whatsoever. And then the fourth pair is one that Rode sent over relatively recently-ish, a few months ago, so about 2 years after the headphones' initial release. I haven't used these as much, but they have no cracks in the clips at all. And my wife does have a pair from, I guess this is probably a little over a year ago, and these also do not have cracks. So there's 5 sets here. 2 of them have cracks, 3 of them don't. The 3 that don't are ones that are made more recently. I can't see any difference in like the materials or the design or anything between the ones that are cracked and the ones that aren't. And from my own experience, when I first did my first review of these headphones, I had a lot of people messaging me and leaving comments about that. And as time has gone on, that doesn't really happen as much anymore. So I feel like maybe it's an issue that's been resolved. It's something to be aware of. This is very not a scientific breakdown of this. This is just my experience, but I have a lot of pairs of these headphones and I've been using them for a long time. So all that to say, I don't think it's a problem, but it's probably something you should be aware of, and it's just not something that the Shures have to deal with because they have a more traditional design. These were both companies' first headphones geared specifically towards content creators. So Shure had been making headphones for a long time, but even right on the box it says, for editing and content creation. Same thing with the Rodes. That doesn't mean you can't use them for other things, but it's interesting that that is the specific market that these companies are going for. And there is a very big difference between headphones that are designed for consuming audio and headphones designed for creating. And speaking of creating, while I'm working on creating this video about headphones with my headphones, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Artlist, and all the things you can create with their music, sound effects, footage, templates, plugins, and more.
Hey Tom, can you hear me?
I feel like I'm hearing something in my headphones. Is that Persuasion, my good Artlist AI voiceover friend?
Happy to see you still doing the whole alone in my room talking about audio gear thing. Did you know some people call headphones cans? And with AI voiceover, anyone can create professional sounding voiceovers.
Now, I've heard that AI voiceover is the ultimate voiceover tool designed specifically for video creators.
Yep. For once, you're absolutely right about something.
Well, I think I'm right about things sometimes. I was just saying, like, this is a good tool for those times when it's not, like, practical or possible for you to be the one behind the microphone. Hey, is that a Steam, my other longtime good voiceover friend?
Hi again, Tom. And speaking of things you can do, AI voiceover has a ton of male and female voices to choose from. You can choose what's best for your project. And in your case, Tom, people might not have to be subjected to cheesy jokes and puns. Yes, you think they're funny, but those puns can be pun-ishing.
I won't bring up the fact that you used a pun to make fun of my puns. I've been using them since 2017, but if you're new to Artlist or haven't checked them out in a while, there have been some huge updates with a ton of new assets and tools to help you create the best work possible. I like really being able to find songs by searching through moods and genres with tags and my own search terms, because this really helps me find what I'm looking for, even if I can't quite describe it. Like, I know the vibe or the type of song I'm looking for, but I have no idea how to find it. These things really help me narrow it down to find exactly what I'm looking for. But hey, everything my wonderful friends and I talked about is available on all Artlist Max accounts, and the Artlist license covers everything for you and your clients. And use the link in the description for 2 additional free months on your subscription, and thank you again to Artlist for sponsoring this video. Now, what I'm gonna do is go back to editing this by jumping into the part where we were talking about the difference between headphones for consuming audio versus headphones for creating audio. When you're listening to something for fun, you just put on some headphones and want to listen to some music, you might actually want headphones that can kind of like accentuate the sound, boost certain frequencies, color the whole experience to make it more enjoyable and sound the way that you want it to. But when you're working on a project, that's actually the opposite of what you want. You want headphones to be as neutral and precise as possible, because, like, imagine you're editing a podcast with a pair of Beats headphones that like really boost the low frequencies and the bass, and everything in your podcast, everybody's voice sounds deep and boomy, and you're kind of like, wow, this is very deep and boomy. I should adjust that and take out some of those low ends and maybe even boost the highs. Well, since what you were listening to was artificially colored and boosted, the result that other people are going to hear when they're not listening on those very specific headphones is probably going to sound really thin and harsh and unpleasant. So if you're using a pair of headphones that gives you exactly as close as possible what your audio actually sounds like, and then you edit it and it sounds good and proper that way, then when other people listen to it on a whole variety of different devices and headsets and stuff, it's going to have the best chance of sounding its best. And as anyone who's taken my DIY podcast production course, the Podcaster Playbook, can tell you, that is precisely why it's important to have a pair of precise, neutral headphones. But of course, the more accurate and precise a pair of headphones are, the more expensive they are, so you can kind of think of it as more precise equals more price. And since the Rode and Shure headphones are geared towards content creators, they still fall at a reasonable price point. The Shures have an MSRP of $99, while the Rodes have an MSRP of $149, so $50 more for the Rodes, basically. Neither pair of headphones have Bluetooth functionality, which is also something you really don't want for production headphones, because even though it sounds cool and it can be convenient, it's pretty much impossible to use Bluetooth without a little bit of latency, a little bit of lag or delay. And when you're editing and syncing up audio, any amount, even if it's very small, any amount of delay and latency can cause some huge problems. So using just corded headphones is the best way to make sure you have zero latency monitoring, and that's one thing that can help all your audio sound its best. Now you might have kind of seen this and sort of caught on a bit, but both pairs of these headphones do have detachable cords, so you can just connect them into the ear cup right there, and they have locking connectors, so that way they don't just get pulled out. But I do believe one of the features on both is that even though these are locking, they're not like permanent metal locking. So if this were to really get pulled, the cable and the cord itself would break before breaking the headphone. It would like release here, and then you would only need to get a new cable and not entirely new headphones, which is very cool. The Rode, though, has an extra bonus in that you can connect the cable on either ear cup. So this is actually like, I use this a lot when I'm using my headphones at my desk over here. My like Rodecaster's on my right-hand side, so I always have the cable plugged in the right cup of the headphone. That way it's not going across me. But when I'm editing on my laptop, the headphone cable comes out the left side, so then I always make sure that I have it out the left side. This has been a small quality of life feature that has made things so nice. Both sets, as you would expect with headphones in this price range, do let you replace the cups or the pads. They kind of just pop out and you can just replace them right here. The tricky part here is that the Shure pads are significantly easier to get. You can just like go on Amazon and buy some replacement pads. The Rode pads, currently I believe you have to basically go through Rode to order them directly. And I've talked about this before, but you might have noticed I have some Rodes that have different colored pads and different colored headbands and stuff. I love this. And I wish that they sold these, but this was just like a limited edition thing Rode did, and they sent over like some pads and things. And I have genuinely been trying to convince Rode that they should sell these because people would buy them in all the different colors. Like, look how good these colors are. And then you imagine the greens and the oranges and the purples, and like you get some really cool looking headphones. Going back to the things that actually matter when talking about these headphones, I would say, as great as both of these sound, I personally think that the Rodes are a bit more neutral and a bit more accurate. In fact, something I've noticed when using the NTH100s is that they're kind of like, I guess you could call it like an audio litmus test, because they don't do any favors to your audio. And I don't mean that they sound bad. What I mean is that if you get something that sounds good in these, you know that it's probably going to sound great on pretty much anything else. They're not going to kind of help hide anything or make something sound better than it is. They're not going to cover up issues. You are just hearing exactly what something sounds like. The Shures are very, very similar to that, and I think they actually claim to be more precise and more neutral, but I have noticed that the Shures do seem to color the sound a little bit more, especially the low ends. They kind of like playing my bass back here. If I'm using these, it sounds really awesome and like low end and rumbly compared to these. And there's a huge difference. And even though that's fun while I'm playing the bass, that means that I do think the Rodes are a little more accurate and neutral in giving you exactly what something sounds like. They're both great headsets. And again, the Shures are $50 cheaper. So since both of these are great, and we've talked sort of about, some of their similarities, let's now talk about the specific advantages of each. Let's start with the Shure. The Shures are incredibly comfortable, especially the ear pads. They are easier to adjust because you don't have to lock the thing. It just sort of goes like this. And what's very cool is in here you also have measured kind of like numbered ruler things, so you can easily get them even. You don't have lopsided headphones, which is cool. They do something that really nice when all headphones do this. They just fold flat. This is not a brand new thing that has never been done before, but if you're traveling with headphones, having them go like this is so much easier than traveling with headphones like that. Just fold flat design, super nice. These do isolate a little bit more. I don't think they're claiming to be noise canceling headphones, but when I put them on, like even right now, I can't, my voice sounds very strange to me because I can't really hear it. So these isolate a lot more than the Rhodes do. These isolate a bit, but not nearly as much. They kind of make you feel more like you're in the environment still. That's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but it is just a difference. Some advantages to the Rhodes, like I mentioned before, are the fact that you can connect the cable on either side. That has been something that has been such a huge quality of life thing. And another quality of life thing is how easy it is to tell which is the right and the left. So the right cup has this little red thing on it. And then also in your cups, in your ear cups, there's an R and an L. So as you just pick these up, you know right away which one is the right way to put those on here. The Shure, this is probably my biggest complaint with these headphones. It's basically impossible to figure out which way these go. They have the tiniest little R and L in here that's like engraved black on black text. Like it's every time I pick these up, I'm like, which one? You almost need to like put some kind of marker or paint or tape or something on the right side so you know which one is the right side. The Rhodes you can just pick up, look for the red. If you're unsure about that, then you can just look inside the cup and right there. Now I do think also the Rhodes, this is maybe a little more important than that. If you do put these on side by side, like if you were standing right here and I was like, put these on and then put these on, I have a feeling you might think that the Shures are more comfortable. So for shorter sessions, like, 30 minutes, under an hour, I think these are more comfortable. For longer, extended editing sessions, the Rhodes are significantly more comfortable. I really wouldn't want to wear the Shures all day, especially because the headband is it's sort of like thin and you can kind of feel the parts under there and it puts a lot of pressure on my head. Obviously the shape and size of your head might change how you feel about different headphones. But the Rhodes, this is a very comfortable band that there have been plenty of times I've worn these for hours on end to the point where I literally forget that I'm wearing them. I just get used to them and I realize that I've had them on for like an hour and a half after I stopped editing audio and I'm just working on something. Like I have headphones on with no audio coming in. So I've used these pretty much daily for over 2 years now, often for many hours at a time, and I would confidently say these are the most comfortable headphones for long-term editing sessions. Now they are less isolating, like I mentioned before, but I kind of like that because when I'm wearing them for long periods of time, I don't like feeling super isolated from my environment. So for me, this is like the perfect balance. Now, one thing that the Rhodes can do that these Shures can't do, and maybe is a reason for their higher price, is if you even want to spend a little bit more money, you could spend $189 and get this extra headset, or you can buy it separately for $59. And what this is, it's the same pair of headphones, it's what you're listening to me on right now, but it is a little headset microphone that clips right in, and now you have a headset setup, which I actually think sounds pretty impressive considering how simple and small this is. I'm not someone who uses a lot of headsets, but I have been very impressed with the overall sound quality of this, especially right now you're listening with no effects and no processing, of course, but if you were to run this through, a Rodecaster or Rode Central software or some other software to then process it, that's pretty cool. And the fact that this is so small and so out of the way is pretty awesome. So if you are somebody who thinks you might want to use your headphones as a headset at some point, then you might want to get set on getting the Rhodes over the Shures. Now, as we're talking about these headphones, I'm sure you might watch this video and wonder how these two models compare to a few other popular options, also at similar price points. Now, like I said, I'm no expert, but it is tough to talk about production headphones without mentioning the Sony MDR 7506s. Again, all very catchy product names. The Sonys are super recognizable. I actually don't own a pair of them personally, but I've used them a lot at previous jobs over the years. And while the Rode and the Shure models have been around since 2022, the 7506s have been insanely popular and super well regarded and well trusted in professional settings since 1991. So for just a little bit longer. And they have an MSRP of $99, so it makes them pretty tough to argue with. But like I said, I don't own a pair because even though I have used them a lot over the years and I admire their legacy, for me personally, they're just not a great fit. I've never found them personally to be super comfortable, and they also have a permanently attached braided cord that I think is like really heavy, and it kind of gets in the way, and I've never enjoyed using those headphones. But just because they don't work for me doesn't mean they wouldn't work for you, and it could be worth checking out. And the other pair of production headphones that I do own are the Sennheiser HD300 Pros, which do have a lot of pros to them. They have an MSRP of $199, which makes them the most expensive set here, and I do think that overall they probably are the most comfortable. These are insanely comfortable headphones. Just you can see all the padding here. It's pretty ridiculous if my, thick, luscious hair gets out of the way there. They are more isolating than the Rhodes and the Shures. These are the ones that sound, they're not noise canceling, but they're the ones that sound most like a pair of noise canceling headphones. But again, for me, that can kind of make it tough to use them for extended periods because I don't like to be super isolated for that long. These are great for short periods. They're incredibly comfortable. They do not have a removable cord. I do have a replaceable cord. So there's like little screws here and you can take out the cord and replace it if something happens. So, if your pads get messed up or your band gets messed up or the cord gets messed up, you can replace all of those things, but it's not as easy to swap out as it is with these ones. So the Sennheiser's incredible sounding, super like neutral and precise, fold up very compact as you can see here, but also the most expensive and not the ones that I would choose to wear for many, many hours on end. So that's something to really keep in mind when you're looking at headphones, because there are also a ton of other options out there to pretty much suit every budget and every preference. But I do hope that this kind of at least gives you an idea of what might work for you, because no matter which road you choose to go down, there sure are some great headphone options out there. And speaking of great things out there,
I'll take it from here. Thank you to everyone who helps support Tom's channel through Patreon and YouTube channel memberships. If you want to learn more about podcasting and audio gear, check out these videos right here.